If you people knew how hard it is to get, well, I guess if you're watching the video, the hobo that is my friend, Team Wisconsin Football, to join us on the
Fullback.
podcast.
Fullback.
I'm sorry, fullback. Listen, people, it's a treat. We week in and week out, we don't commit to anything around here anymore. Our dozens of fans are down to 4 or 5. But hopefully we bring people back because IL Yahtzee himself is back. We are going to talk football first, and then other stuff. And it's been a while, so God only knows what we're going to talk about today. The episode will end with some cash money himself that'll do his WrestleMania reaction. You can listen to that. But you're alive, it looks like. You're in a house. Is that the house you're renting? I mean, what's going on with you?
Yeah.
Tell the people
right now,
where you've
well,
been and what your problem is and why they haven't heard from you.
well, right now we should have sold our house about 6 times. The first one fell through. Like the bank approved the loan with a contingency, but we weren't told about the contingency. And so that one fell through. And then the next sale that we made on the house, the lender continues to push the closing date back. Like we're on our 3rd, I think, closing date now, and I think we finally have an actual for sure date.
Okay.
Oh, we have a range of dates.
Got it.
It'll be by a certain date.
Okay.
And so like we've been moving, but then every time while we're moving, we get like a text that's like, oh, the closing date is no longer on Monday. And, so then you're just like, yeah, we'll finish moving when we get to it. And so we've got a full house worth of stuff in a duplex and a storage facility. And we have accumulated a lot of stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Just
Listen, people, I know you want us to talk about football, but let's start first with 38-year-old men problems, okay?
With kids.
With kids. The problem becomes, in general, your house is too small for the junk you accumulate. Like, I'll give you an example. So Matt comes over to my house last night or yesterday, and he starts going through.
That's probably why we lost all of our followers. They probably all left after Matt was on.
Probably. And it was probably our last actual full episode we actually ran was probably that one months ago because we've been on hiatus. And he's going through like stuff that, I have in bins for years that he can sell. And he goes, well, do you want to sell this? And I looked at him and I said, Matt, I have moved that box from an apartment to one house to now another house. And you know how many times I've looked in the box? Once today, right? So the Super Bowl newspaper that I clearly don't care about because it's in a box, sell it. Go for it. You can sell that newspaper all you want. And that's the problem. That's just my own junk. That's not counting Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers, and that's not counting that stuff.
Now, is Matt still down in Milwaukee or no?
No, he goes to Oshkosh. He's graduating in May. Shout out, Matt.
I was going to say, otherwise send him over because I've got stuff he could sell too.
Listen, this is his business idea. People, if you're all 4 of you that are listening, Matt's business idea is for him to go through your house and to find the stuff that's valuable. And then on consignment, he'll sell it for you and make a commission. Amazing idea. I said it's actually kind of American Pickers, sort of.
It kind of sounds like this website idea I have.
Tell me more.
About calling it eBay.
eBay doesn't come to your house and go through it. I'll give you an example.
He's like an in-person auctioneer almost.
Yes, absolutely. He's way ahead of his time or behind his time. But he did this the other day. So he's at the house and he goes, I don't know why you didn't tell me you had this. I said, what are you talking about? So he went up to the kids' room and found one of the Dr. Seuss books that is like being canceled. And
it's not canceled. The Seuss Federation has said that they are no longer going to print the book.
Okay, so he grabbed the book based on the published date. He looked online where he sells his stuff. He's like, I could probably get you $120 for this. I said, pause. Pause. You give me $120 for a book I've never read to my children? Amen. Sell it. I tell Paula, and she's like, well, I really like reading those books. I'm like, for $120, I'll buy as many books as you want. Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, right. You can go to a garage sale, and you could probably buy like, right?
How many books you want? I'll buy as
250
many as you want. You want
books.
200 books? I'll get you 200 bucks.
Right.
I'll get them from the free box.
Yeah, a free little library.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, so we've
So
been,
that's where you've been. You've been moving. The people have lost
and
you.
like,
Okay.
yeah, and then you just have stuff and you move stuff around. My
Do we
dog's got cancer.
What?
They have a surgery, melanoma.
Dogs
Yeah,
get cancer?
It's not like malicious cancer, right? Like it's
Malignant.
not
Malignant.
Yes. Well, deadly.
Okay. That's what you're going for. Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause malignant's good, right? You want a tumor to be malignant, not malignant? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, Kayla. Do you want a malignant tumor or benign?
Benign. Wait, are those the same? Okay, listen. No one wants to hear our medical advice.
My
So the
dog
dog
is-
Shotzi. Is it Shotzi still?
Yeah, she's got this tumor on her back leg, and it's gotten bigger and bigger over the years. But we just ignored it. Kayla was like, I don't want to know. And I was like, well, if you don't want to
Great
know, I'm
parenting.
not going
Good
to
job.
find out.
Okay.
And then finally, like, it got so big so fast that it, like, caved on itself. It's like Grand Canyon. Except for instead of just being a Grand Canyon big cave, it, like, oozes out nasty stuff.
Oh,
And so
we
we
had that.
took her in, and now we have to have surgery on it. And
We had that with Jelly. But Jelly
You don't
died,
think-
so she didn't make it.
Oh.
Okay.
And now
So
she, like,
let's do this.
licked all over.
Let's do this. You're clearly don't have headphones in, so your significant other can hear you, correct?
She just glared at me.
Okay. Kayla, there are 7 people in the world that want to hear us podcast every week. Can we get him to commit to a consistent time? Because I'm sick of chasing him, okay? I work so hard at our friendship. Really. I mean, I'm the only one working at our relationship.
Wow. No say.
Well, I mean, I don't.
Except for how I sit on the couch.
It's because you crushed the cushion.
Yeah, but he loves you, so he cares about your opinion.
In our relationship.
Any night after 8:30, I'll be passed out.
Done.
Most
8:30.
nights, except for tonight. It's
'Cause I
8:36.
have homework to do.
And look at this. This kid's still up too.
Shout out to, we got some people on the video here. We got Kayla, who married Chad for whatever reason.
Money.
Money, makes sense. And then we have the cutest of all the kids. I don't know how in the world. I mean, look at her. She's unbelievable. Hey, can I tell you something, Aggie? Your brother was picking on me today, bullying me on the phone. Bullying me. You think that's funny? He was bullying me today. And I have videos in my car that I'm mailing to him. And he was bullying me today.
Any thoughts?
You want to
on
know what he said? You want to know what he said?
it? What?
Great story, guy. What does that even mean? He just kept picking on me.
Iggy, who's your favorite wrestler?
Sasha Banks.
Is it Sasha Banks?
It's got to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who
What did
don't
just
you
move
like?
to?
Who's your favorite male wrestler?
Who's your favorite boy wrestler? Yeah. What birthday party did you have for a wrestler?
Otis?
Yeah. Otis
Who?
themed birthday party.
Otis?
And I like.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have a whole collection of boys and girls.
Yeah. Tell them some of your wrestlers you have. No?
Aggie, let me ask you a question.
We
What
were big
wrestler-
older Mandy Rose fans.
Mandy Rose fans. She was just on Raw earlier tonight. The Dana Brooks Mandy Rose tag team, get rid of it. Absolute hot garbage.
They totally had something with Heavy Machinery and Mandy, and they just squashed it for no
And it
reason.
was
Hot garbage.
Big.
Yeah.
Hot garbage. Aggie,
Mandy was slipping. I thought there was a doll of Mandy was slipping.
that was funny when she fell during WrestleMania. That was actually pretty funny. And then it was funny how Randy Orton came out the second night and tried to pretend like he was slipping. That was funny too.
To try to cover, yeah.
All right, so all 4 listeners are officially gone now.
Right.
We've ran them all off. Okay, people, seriously, we're going to talk about some football. So, Chad, you wanted to interview me today because you're
Well,
the professional broadcaster now.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't
Kick us off tonight. Get us going on a real tangent.
It wasn't a real interview per se, but I did have some
Ask me a
thoughts as
question.
I was listening to your draft podcast.
Yeah,
the
like
one with the
12
WrestleMania.
minutes. I think that's about as much football as we've talked in the last month.
You were talking about the Packers, and you mentioned, some future draft picks that are drafting for the future and not necessarily positions of need. And as an outsider, as an outsider, I'll call myself, listening to your conversation with yourself, I'm thinking to myself, all right, if I'm the Green Bay Packers, as an outside fan, here's my questions.
Go ahead. Let's hear them.
All right. Number 1, slot wide receiver. Like, right? But no, obviously you've
whoa, that's not even a question. You just made a statement.
So do you feel that the Packers would, number 1, benefit from a slot type wide receiver, and number 2, would that be something a la Rondale Moore, right? A undersized route runner, a quick guy, because I'm thinking of the Packers wide receivers, and I'm thinking Davante Adams, he can obviously run any route, arguably one of the best wide receivers or the best wide receiver in the NFL. But then you've got like MVS, you've got Lazard, like you've just got these really big, long guys.
Which is Matt LaFleur's type.
And I'm thinking football today, I'm not a huge fan of all the passing, and obviously my name is Wisconsin Fullback.
# team run the ball.
Yeah. But I'm like, man, I feel like they could really use a guy that they could just throw into the slot, like a 5'8" to 5'10" route runner, right? Just like one of those specialist inside guys. I don't feel that they really have any. Is that something as a Packer fan that, number 1, you would feel they would benefit from? And number 2, something that they would look like if Rondale Moore is there at the end of round 1, right?
Which I think he will be. I think very well.
I mean, that would have to be super tempting, right?
Kadarius Toney potentially will be there. Elijah Moore, I think, will be there. Okay, so let me answer your question this way. I think that you and Mike Renner, apparently at Pro Football Focus, are on the same page, which that's how screwed up you are right now.
Yeah.
Here's the way I look at it. A slot receiver in the Packers offense most likely is going to get a max 35 snaps in a game. I mean, when you look at the personnel groups they play in, even when they've played 3 wide receivers, a lot of times Davante Adams is playing in the slot. They played MVS in the slot and ran a lot of crossing routes with them. Now, the role that I would like maybe a Rondale Moore or Kadarius Toney is how they use Tyler Ervin, especially early in the year in the Minnesota game. Jet sweeps, out of the backfield. But you got to ask yourself, is that worth a first-round pick? 35 plays for a guy that probably can't play outside, max is what you're going to get in the field. Do you use a first-round pick on a guy like that? There's enough gadget players in this draft. I don't think you have to use a first-round pick on him, especially at wide receiver when all of their wide receivers are free agents after the year. So if a guy doesn't have flexibility to go inside, outside, to me, he wouldn't be on my draft board. That's just my opinion. I think Kadarius Toney can play outside. I think Elijah Moore could in the right situation. I don't think Rondale Moore can. And, there's some guys that Tutu Atwell is like, I think Will's bigger than him. I mean, he's like 150 pounds. So again, I'm not using a first round pick on a gadget player personally.
I mean, I don't know that I would call a guy like that a gadget player, but I understand, because they do like the tight ends and all of that, and the moving tight ends and all that stuff. But I'm just like, when you just
but even look at the Buccaneers. The
Buccaneers, the Bills. I mean, how big of a season did Beasley have?
But in all these situations, the Packers still had the number 1 offense in football. And I even look at the Buccaneers when they played the Packers. They played a ton of 12 personnel sets. So Antonio Brown, Scotty Miller aren't on the field enough snaps, really, in my opinion, to justify a first-round pick. That's just my opinion. Now, would I take in the first round Terrence Marshall, Rashad Bateman at 29? Absolutely.
All right. That was my first question. So do you feel that's a position that they could look to improve, or do you think they'll continue to go for the bigger, longer guys?
I would go with the bigger, longer guys personally. And I think that's what they'll do. I think LaFleur is a type. I think LaFleur wants to be in 11 personnel, but when he's in 11 personnel, he wants to run the ball. And to do that, they played Kumaro, Lazard, guys that are good blocking wide receivers. And to be honest with you, I think that guy is Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones is that player for them that they can split out in the slot, run jet sweep with.
I kind of like that guy. He's a decent at what he does.
I think they, you don't pay running backs though. Hey, Mike Renner, you don't pay running backs.
Yeah.
Okay?
See,
shout out to my guy, Mike Renner.
Yeah. PFF and I separate at that stage.
Yeah. Apparently you were mad at me because I picked a fight with PFF.
No,
I got a tweet from you that I shouldn't be picking fights with the experts, I think is what it said.
Yeah, that was sarcastic.
Oh, okay. So you're okay. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And question 2, or not really a question because you did address it a little bit.
Tell me
but
more.
It was definitely cornerback. Like,
okay.
So let's say hypothetically, I'm looking at CBS right now. And I haven't looked at a whole lot of draft projections, but I'm on CBS right now, and I see round 29, Packers, Rashad Bateman. Pick number 30, Asante Samuel Jr. Pick number 31, Jason Owe. Right, so we've got corner, D-line, and then the Packers taking a wide receiver. Asante Samuel, correct me if I'm wrong, but has some Alexander comps, right?
Similar. I think they play him similar to how Jair plays, 7 yards off, read and react off the quarterback. I don't think he's not the athlete Jair Alexander is, but similar body type, similar play style.
All right. So let's say that situation plays out. You've got Bateman and Samuel Jr. basically. Which one of those two are you taking?
Rashad Bateman.
You're
I like Asante Samuel Jr. I don't grade him as a first-round pick. I think in this year's draft, I would say 6 wide receivers would have a first-round grade. And I didn't break down all the positions to the depth I did last year, but I did grade the safeties for Cheesehead TV. Shout out Cheesehead TV. I think there's 6 wide receivers that have first-round grades. At corner, it's hard because I probably would not draft Caleb Farley and would have him completely off my board. Talent-wise, first-round pick, back issue surgeries, untouchable in my opinion. So then that leaves me with Patrick Surtain Jr., J.C. Horn, Greg Newsome would be my third corner. And really when you get into corner 4, I don't know if anyone really has a consistent board, but to me, those guys are all borderline. They're all borderline second-round picks. So if I'm sitting at that pick, I am offensive tackle, wide receiver, unless Greg Newsome's on the board. That's where I would go. I think corner is a very deep position, but I think the first-round talent is very top-heavy. I think J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain Jr. and Greg Newsome, I think, are gone in the top 18 picks. I don't see them being available to the Packers.
Yeah, and the few sites that I've looked at, they were all gone by that point. All right, not Packer related, but as I've mentioned, I haven't done a ton of digging around, but I'm looking at this CBS mock from 4 hours ago, and all of a sudden,
you're a big CBS guy.
I like CBS. I'm seeing Mac Jones has ascended to 3.
Unbelievable, huh?
Justin Fields is now pick 7. And Trey Lance is pick 15. What's happened in the last couple of weeks?
Well, let's do this. Can we start at the quarterback carousel? Can we have that conversation first before we talk about quarterbacks? Here, let me just preface this. If you listen to old episodes of the podcast, the plan was to have Matt McCoy on and do all of his previews of the positions. And to be honest with you, Chad moved. I've been taking some exams and living life, okay? And Matt's podcast is blown up. It's hard to get him right now. Although I am doing a mock draft for him where I'm the Packers. I'm picking as the Packers
Hey,
in the next week or
pick
so.
randomly as the Seahawks for the 3 picks that they have. I think I could do that.
Yeah, well, give him a shout out. So anyways, if you go back to an old episode, we did talk about quarterbacks, and I'm just going to leave it at this. I think it is an absolute mistake for people to be looking at Justin Fields below where, to me, to be grading Justin Fields below anyone besides maybe Zach Wilson. And I think Justin Fields and Zach Wilson is still a toss-up for the second quarterback. I would need to see more tape. I would need to get to know these guys better. I would have to do the measurables. Like the stuff we don't get to do as fans, we only get to watch how much tape we actually get to see. I don't know if I'd feel comfortable picking one or the other. Right now, I would lean Justin Fields over Zach Wilson, me personally. At 4, I'm taking Trey Lance because of the upside. So Mac Wilson is my 5th quarterback. And if Jordan Love was in this draft, say that again?
Mac Jones.
Jones.
Yeah, you said Mac Wilson.
Mac Wilson. I don't even know who Mac Wilson is, but I said Mac Wilson. And if Jordan Love was in this draft, I would have a debate with Jordan Love between him and Trey Lance. But I would take him over Mac Jones. Okay? So what even got us to this point? Well, a huge 3-team trade that got the 49ers to move up to the number 3 spot. And all the rumor and innuendo says they're taking Mac Jones at 3 over Fields, Lance. They prefer Mac Jones.
Is that smoke screen?
Well, what do you think? What would be the purpose of a smoke screen if you know Lawrence is going 1, you pretty much know that Zach Wilson is going 2. What would be the smoke screen to make people believe that you're going to take Mac Wilson when it's not like you're going to trade back?
Mac Jones.
Mac Wilson. Who's Mac Wilson?
I don't know, but you really like him. What do you have him graded as a prospect?
What's my guy?
Oh, yeah, Meacham. Jim Meacham.
Who's Jim Meacham?
Kayla is convinced that there is an NFL player named Jim Meacham.
Isn't Jim Meacham the kid that runs the picket fence in Hoosiers? Isn't that him?
That's Jimmy Chitwood.
Oh, Jimmy Chitwood.
Yeah. So as a joke one time, I bought her a Robert Meacham autographed football card.
You didn't buy that as a joke. You got it for free when we interned. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he didn't play there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I just don't know where Mac Jones came from. Like, what happened that all of a sudden the 49ers and Shanahan are like, yeah, this is our guy. Like, he went from, I think if you look at the evaluate 1-year starters on top of it when you've got 2 of the best wide receivers in college football that you're throwing to, and like a big running back. Remember, like when I talked about how hard it is for me to evaluate a guy like Fields when Ohio State quarterbacks have constantly, right, just like there's guys running wide open all the time.
Yeah, a lot of times college, the players are schemed open.
Right. And then Mac Jones is throwing to 2 of the best wide receivers in the draft.
Right.
And he's gone from, like this 1-year starter to, all of a sudden he was a 2nd-round pick, then he was the end of the 1st-round pick, and now he's pick 3?
Well, so I think a couple things go into this. Now, to be clear, the Draft Network has Trevor Lawrence 1. Now, this isn't a mock draft. This is their rankings, okay? So clearly guys will go differently than rankings. But Justin Fields 5, Zach Wilson 9. So they're in line with what I believe. Trey Lance 24, still a 1st-rounder though. And then Mac Jones at 65. So I think there's a couple things. Now, I think this is the wrong thought process, but it's possible that if you're a team like the Niners that, if healthy, has one of the most talented rosters in the NFC, right? You have a quarterback that got you to the Super Bowl that's still under contract. And if you're going to have any sort of incremental growth or better in play at quarterback, you probably need a guy that's not a developmental player like Trey Lance. Trey Lance's best football's ahead of him, but you don't want to start him this year. I would argue the same thing with Justin Fields. The preference would be to not play him in his first year. Zach Wilson, the jump from BYU to Super Bowl contending 49ers, I think the 49ers say, well, Mac Jones might be more ready and could actually, as the year goes on, compete with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think, again, Kyle Shanahan won games with CJ Beathard. He won games with Nick Mullins, right? Like, he's this offensive genius, right? Get a guy that can come in and make your football team better. I don't think that's the right approach, if that's what they're thinking. But it's possible he's the most ready to play.
Now, the 49ers run a lot of two tight end or no?
Not as much, but as they have in the past, but they do.
I mean, okay, Garoppolo and Kittle and Pitts.
No way.
And
No way. I'm not saying it's not possible, but you don't trade 3 first-round picks down.
no, I agree with that, but like, I don't know. I don't know where just this Mac Jones hype just caught me.
Who would you take?
At 3? Well, I wouldn't have made that trade if I were the 49ers.
I probably wouldn't have either. I mean, if I'm being honest, and I'm the 49ers, I would rather trade for Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I mean, that makes
Give
sense.
up a 6th-round pick this year, future picks. Ultimately, at the end of the day, he comes in and he competes with Garoppolo, and if he wins and plays well, sign him.
Yeah, I mean, that trade made sense for other teams too. Like, I'm looking at the Falcons who picked next, and I'm like, well,
you know who didn't like that pick? Your
Who?
boy Mike Renner. He didn't like that trade. He loved that the 49ers went all in and gave up 3 first-round picks, but he didn't like that Sam Darnold, you give up a 2nd-round pick for Sam Darnold? Like,
yeah, like, and then I'm looking at Pitts, and I'm listening to you, and Falcons are taking Pitts in this mock at pick 4, and I'm like, well, Fields makes sense. Lance makes sense. Like, Matt Ryan's about done. They've got holes everywhere. So
the draft 100% starts at pick 4. Because again, you got to look at it from the Falcons' point of view. If you think this is the only time you're going to be up in the top 10 because you're a good football team, you got Matt Ryan, you got good offensive weapons.
Yeah, but they've just got holes everywhere.
Like, you go get the quarterback now because you're not going to be up this high to pick him in the future, and this is a great quarterback draft. And then you have eventually the bridge to Matt Ryan. The problem with that is, right, you have a ton of holes, okay? Defensively, I could name maybe one player on their defense. And I try to think I know enough about football, okay? I can't name anyone on that team. Offensively, sure, go get Kyle Pitts with Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones and Matt Ryan, and you ain't stopping anyone, so you better score a ton of points, right? In a really good division. I would have, if I was the Falcons, I would trade back. I would accumulate picks. I would bank on someone that wants one of these quarterbacks, and I would trade back. If it was me, that's what I would do.
Hypothetically, you could trade back and you could still pick one of these quarterbacks because at some point, right, all the other talent has to come off the board. Pitts, Chase, Waddle, Sewell, Surtain, Horn, right?
Well,
like
so play that out though. Okay, so let's say one of these teams goes up to 4. Now I don't know if that's going to happen because the teams that would trade up that have been rumored, right, were the Panthers. I would assume are done with Sam Darnold now, unless they trade Bridgewater and still want a quarterback. Whatever. The Patriots, the Broncos have been rumored. Now the Bears are being rumored to potentially move up, even though they got Andy Dalton. So at some point in time, right, like these 5 quarterbacks, they're for sure not getting past the Bears, where they pick at 20, I believe. Okay, so 5 of these guys are going in the top 20, no matter how you look at it. But you're right. You have 3 receivers, a tight end, probably 2 offensive linemen, Micah Parsons. I mean, that's 7 players that got to go somewhere here in this top 15.
and
Not counting Patrick Surtain.
And the crazy thing is we can almost guarantee based on previous history that one or two of them is all of a sudden going to end up in the 20s, 25 range, and that's when
Packers will take him. You're right.
Right, as like a Packer fan, right? You're like, trade up, right? Like, hey, Micah Parsons still on the board, or there's one of these cornerbacks that's fallen, they're still on the board, and you're just praying that they trade up. And maybe they do.
Goody does. Goody will trade up. He
Yeah,
just won't take who you think he's going to take.
Hey, is Justin Harrell available somewhere up here?
Hey. Don't you besmudge the great name of Ted Thompson.
Hey, so I looked up the Falcons defense here. Jacob Tuitoa Mariner.
Don't know who he is.
Grady Jarrett.
Yep, that's my one guy I was going to say.
Tyler Davison.
I know of him because the Packers played the Falcons a couple years ago. Last year.
Dante Fowler Jr.
Oh, I know him.
Yep.
I got two.
Michael Walker.
Never heard of him.
Deion Jones.
Yeah, he's good.
Foya Saad Olakun.
Yeah, not a big. I don't know him.
AJ Terrell.
I know him. First round pick last year.
Jalen Hawkins. Eric Harris and Kendall Sheffield.
Kendall Sheffield, I think, went to Ohio State.
And I know one of their backup cornerbacks.
Ooh, what's his name?
Fabian Morrow, because he's super fast on Madden 21.
Fabian Moreau. The UCLA maybe? He was with the Redskins?
I just drafted him on Madden 21 and put him in the slot because he's super fast. Yep, UCLA.
There you go. So basically what we're saying is the draft starts at 4. That's when it's going to get super interesting. I think it's like every year. I mean, the quarterback decision is going to ultimately affect really everything that happens after that. And again, and I'll say this once and I'm going to leave it at this. You want to chastise the Packers for taking Jordan Love when they're coming off an NFC championship, played in another NFC championship against a team that won the Super Bowl, and they gave up a 4th-round pick to move up 2 spots to take a first-round graded quarterback. When the 49ers just gave up 3 first-round picks to move up in a draft where 5 guys are going to go in the top 20 picks, right? Like at some point in time, the resources that are being put into the quarterback position, like you have to win now and plan for your future. You don't have a choice anymore, right? Especially as your quarterback's aging, which is why if I was the Falcons, I would trade back, but in a position where I still potentially had the opportunity at a Trey Lance. I don't know if I want Mac Jones, but trading with the Broncos for the Broncos to move up, would be something I would think about.
You could always trade back for that. I remember a few years ago there was a lot of talk about Tanner Morgan being a first-round pick from Golden Gopher fans.
So listen, that's why you're a professional broadcaster. Great transition into, I know what you want to talk about. We're going to close on this. We're going to take 15 minutes. That's it. Because the Twitter sphere is on fire right now with spring football updates. And apparently the best wide receiver to play at Wisconsin, I'm going to say since Chris Chambers, maybe Lee Evans, right?
Lee was really good.
Lee was so good. Okay. and people, let me tell you, when you could see Lee Evans in person on the sideline, oh my gosh. Hey, when we were digging through those binders with Matt, I found my folder from Buffalo. Oh my God, there's so much cool stuff in there. Literally, like our ticket stubs, our airline ticket stubs were in there. Like our itinerary. I have all my rejection letters in a file folder.
I bet you I still have them somewhere.
I said to Matt, "Oh, do you have a rejection letter from the Ravens, the Dolphins, the Raiders?" I'm like, dude, apparently 30 people didn't want me, but this one team did, and they paid me $6.75 an hour with limited overtime.
Yeah, with some overtime. Yeah.
Let me just tell you how much overtime we made from the Buffalo Bills that summer, okay? They paid like a semester of college for me. I feel
Yeah,
like
they paid so much overtime that they changed their rule the next year to try to disallow overtime.
Listen, if you want to learn how to make money and let your per diem go the distance, IL Yahtzee can teach you all about peanut butter and bread sandwiches, okay? And cash in your checks at Wegmans and just pocket in the money. You know what I mean?
Yep. Actually, at the end of that, I kept all of my checks. I didn't even deposit any of them. And at the end of that summer, I tried to withdraw some when Kayla came to Buffalo to visit, and my account was like empty. Like I
Is that
couldn't.
when we went? Did Kayla come on like that last night that we went out before we had to fly out, or you stayed longer?
Because I stayed longer.
You stayed longer.
Megan got us a sweet deal at the downtown
Yeah,
hotel,
yeah, yeah.
and we were like way up top, right? Like
Because
one of
we
the-
went out like that last night, and
Yeah.
I was out till like Buffalo bar closed 3:30 in the morning, and I had to be on a flight at like 7 a.m.
You couldn't, and you had to stay out because you couldn't buy beer after like 7:00.
Right.
Like it was like what? Remember that? It was like Friday or Saturday night, and we were like walking around the gas stations, and we were like, "We want to buy beer," and they're like, "What? You can't buy beer here."
We're like, is this a dry county? Where are we?
Like right. And then there was nothing going on except for like Friday night and Saturday night, and then Sunday after the games, and then downtown was just like dead the next day. Like we're up in this high, right, like one of the top floors of this apartment, looking down at like Monday at noon downtown Buffalo. And we're like thinking that it's going to be buzzing. There's like 4 people on the street.
What? So when we went out that last night, Kayla wasn't there yet, or she was there?
Yeah, she was.
Okay.
Yeah, she came to the game. She was sitting at
Yeah.
like, you know,
Because that was the night that
I think
that
she
was
got
the night,
body seats.
that was the night that because Megan went out with us and maybe was dancing with his eventually future wife. That
Yep.
Okay. All right. Good. Hey. My only stories I remember of Kayla going out with us normally was at Church Key in Madison, but that we ain't getting into any of those stories.
Yeah.
So.
This is a family.
This is a family podcast. Okay. Okay. So back to the Badgers and not Lee Evans. Okay. Apparently, some awesome wide receiver you want to talk about. Can you tell me more about his performance so far?
A wide receiver.
DK. That's all I heard about from Zach Heilprin and all the guys.
Oh
that
yeah.
on Twitter.
I mean, he's having actually
Unguardable is how he was described in
yeah.
the tweet.
Well, that one particular practice, especially with him and Mertz, were connecting fairly well. I think obviously.
Well, if we saw Mertz play last year, it's because he locks into DK on every play. But okay, that's a whole nother.
Well, at the time, though, who else was going to throw to, right?
That's a good point too.
Everybody else was hurt. He's one of those guys where I still think by the time he's done, he's going to be NFL caliber wide receiver. He's just under recruited because
Waukesha kid, right?
Waukesha kid. He was a running back, wide receiver, right? He played everything. When they ran it, he ran. When they passed, he was the wide receiver. Just a really good, athlete that's under recruited because he was from Wisconsin and because he didn't go to a lot of camps. So he's been having a really good summer. By all accounts, AJ Abbott has stepped up at wide receiver, and then Devin Chandler has had a really good spring as well.
Yes, I've heard a lot about Devin Chandler, but here's what you're burying the lead a little bit, okay? Because our friends from Grantsburg have been all over Twitter. John Chanel is, obviously team run the ball, okay? Him and I have been back and forth on Twitter, clearly a friend of the show. We got to figure out how to get him on here, okay? That's a real thing we got to make happen. But Leo apparently is unblockable? I mean
yeah, so this spring, some of their running backs they've had some injury woes in the backfield, and so they've had to play Chanel and Brady Shipper a little bit at halfback. Now Shipper is a walk-on running back.
Yeah, let's get his background. Let's give him a shout out. Where's he from?
Is he from Wanakee?
Mondovi? I mean, I'm just going to name random Wisconsin cities.
Let me I'm looking it up right now. Oh, Stoughton. I was close.
Stoughton.
Yeah, so he's from Stoughton or Stoughton.
Now he's a running back. He's not a fullback.
Correct. He's a running back, 5'11".
Oh my gosh, people.
Uh,
You can't see that. Never mind. That looks like a Wisconsin running back if I've ever seen it in my life.
yeah, look at
Beautiful
this.
curly hair. You know?
3,975 career rushing yards, 40 touchdowns.
The finalist for the Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch Award presented to the state's top running back. Yet he was only honorable mention all state.
Yeah, like so he's been playing a ton of running back, and then
is it because there's injuries, obviously?
there's injuries, yeah. And then if you remember too, their depth chart.
Yeah, tell me the depth chart at running back.
They don't have a lot of depth at running back. You've obviously got Berger, who is by far your number one, which makes sense coming off last year.
Paul Christ, I know you're listening, and I know you're calling plays now. Team Run the Ball just wants to see more Jalen Berger. Can we get 25 carries a game, please?
That's it. That's all we want.
We just want 25. I didn't even ask for 30. I just asked for 25. Jalen Berger. Are you good with touches, or do they got to be carries?
I mean, I'm Team Run the Ball, so
carries. Got it.
Carries,
Paul, just hear us out, okay? 25.
And then after that, you've got Julius Davis, who's been hurt.
Paul's kid. I've been excited about him since he signed.
Yeah, he had some huge, right? He had an LSU offer. He had a lot of offers, but he's just never been healthy.
Great high school tape. Oh, my gosh.
Watson transferred. Groshek's
Darn.
So then you've got Shipper and Isaac Guerrero.
Yeah, the little guy. The little guy.
Who's more of like your jet sweep. Now, you talked about a gadget guy before. That's kind of who he is, or at least was last year.
Yeah, I don't want the Packers to get him. So
really, really fast, right? Decently built kid, but he's also never been healthy.
So you're telling me that the Badgers are going into the year, and we got Berger and Davis?
Berger's by far the number one, and that's fine. He's your bell cow. But those carries that are spelling afterwards, it's a huge question mark right now.
Now here's what we got to ask ourselves.
And so
are we going to get two fullback sets? And who will be in the backfield with John Chanel? Is it Leo?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be Quan Easterling.
Okay, Quan Easterling. Got it. Perfect.
And then there also is potential, depending on what they do with them, of Jackson Acker, who they recruited from Verona as an athlete. But he's either like going to end up a linebacker or he's going to end up, a halfback, fullback type mold. So,
okay.
But Chanel and Easterling have gotten carries. They've gotten the ball thrown to them out of the backfield.
Listen, what do you expect?
Twitter is just going nuts. Badger Twitter is just going nuts about this dual fullback set that they can run out there.
I remember when I'd play Madden back in the day, like you'd put your fullback on like an offset eye and just throw it to him out of the backfield because he's got the linebacker beating coverage, and like get 4 yards and 4 yards, break a tackle, get 8 yards. Like no one does that anymore except Wisconsin. Like that's right. It.
But it's like, and it's just great too because Kayla's old principal came to a Badger game one time against Ohio State, and I met him before the game, and I hunted down some tickets for him, and ended up in the game. Also, I scalped some tickets off the street before the game started. And
totally legal, people. Totally legal.
He's like, he texts me during the game, and he's like, he and a friend go to like a popular state, like they go to a game every year somewhere. They travel to games all over the country. They've gone to D3 games. They've gone to D2 games. They've gone down to Florida. They go to Tennessee. Like they drive to a game a year. He's like, all the places I've ever been, all the levels of football I've ever watched, Wisconsin is the only place I've ever been that when they shift from a passing set into a running set, the crowd cheers. Or they'll come out like 2 tight end, 3 running backs, and the crowd will just go nuts because they're so excited.
Now, here's a really important thing that we have to note. Before we had all the children that we've had, there was this dream that never happened. And this was a yearly road trip where we were going to do the same thing. Yeah. And that's been abandoned. I don't even know what to tell you. You know, now again, I coach college football, so it made a little bit of sense why it didn't happen for a while. But now there's no excuse except children. Now, I don't know if that's a viable excuse. Only our wives can tell us that, but I'm bringing this back. I'm all 4 of you. So clearly the 4 people listening, Paul Christ is one, Ted Thompson. Well, Ted Thompson was one. We lost him. I mean, I've shouted out like 6 people that listen. Sami Zayn. There, right? Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Okay.
And then my parents.
Let's put a bow on this. We can talk more spring ball next week. Really rapid fire. We talked plenty of football. The people got their fill this week. Rapid fire. Best WrestleMania ever in front of 25,000 people, yes or no?
Well, in front of 25,000 people? Yes.
No, give us your instant reaction. We heard Will's reaction again at the end of the podcast. You're going to hear all from a 9-year-old, 8-year-old. I don't know how old he is. He ripped on me today, so we're not friends today, so I don't even care. Okay? Give me your instant reaction. Let the people hear what an adult thinks of the product.
Well, I mean, adult in age, right?
Well, right. Not emotionally, mentally, however you want to grade him.
That's about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. Man, let's see.
Upset about Sami Zayn losing. We know.
Yeah. So here, day one, I was pumped. Like
unbelievable.
I loved day one. I was a huge fan of it. Cesaro and Rollins, I thought were a great match. I like the AJ Styles angle. I love seeing. I'm not a huge. Why are you still awake? I'm not a huge Shane McMahon guy, but seeing the bumps that he takes.
Bro, he did a backflip off the top.
Yeah, that was awesome.
At 51 years old.
Like, I think it's a waste to have Strowman in that role, because to me he's a championship caliber.
Well, so just so you know, on Monday Night Raw right now, Strowman and McIntyre, for whatever reason, are wrestling in a tag team match against Mace and T-Bar, who are still wearing their goofy masks, even though Retribution isn't a thing. So. Right. Raw is a dumpster fire right now. I can't even describe it.
That was a good match. It was fun to watch. It was cool to see like Braun rip the cage.
Awesome. I thought night one was booked perfectly.
Yeah, I love Miz and Morrison. They're number one. They're hilarious, in my opinion. I was sad that they got moved off of SmackDown.
I could see like your kids walking into your class and like you playing hey ho ho like as they walk in. I could see that 100%.
But not only to me are they hilarious, but they're really good.
Oh my gosh.
Wrestler.
Like Bad Bunny was, to me, stole WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Absolutely stole WrestleMania.
And
but
Miz
if he's not with Miz and Morrison,
right.
I don't know if he looks that good.
Right. I thought they did a phenomenal job. That was a cool match. And then having Bianca and Banks as the main event, that was a great story. It was a great match. Just
the second best women's match I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, Bailey Sasha at TakeOver Brooklyn is still, I don't know if anyone can touch that match.
And you know, just the emotion in the match from Bianca, from Montez, and then I don't know if you saw the camera that was on Banks after the match, but she rolled out of the ring, right? And then she's like leaning up on the guardrail, and she's just like smiling, watching.
Right.
You know,
she's kind of trying to get the camera away so they don't catch her smiling, but clearly was excited. She did a great job on SmackDown this week of selling how frustrated she is that she lost a championship. I mean, I think they can tell some great stories on SmackDown with, you know, the women that they have there. And now with Ripley and Flair and Asuka right on Raw, I think you got some top people there.
But I thought night one was great. I thought night one was phenomenal.
Absolutely. Night two,
I don't know, that whole Orton and Fiend thing. That was weird.
Don't get it.
Really weird.
They have booked the Fiend in such confusing ways at times. And I get if they want to break up, you know, Bliss and Fiend, fine. But it wasn't clear that that's what was happening.
Yeah,
and then you leave that match and you go to a women's tag match that no one's excited about.
Yeah,
I
Jackson
mean,
days are painful to me.
they're brutal, absolutely brutal. And I was hoping they'd break up at Mania, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, and there were some underlying things there, right? I thought they were going to do something with what's his name, Reginald.
I don't know what happened to him. He hasn't appeared in weeks.
Yeah, like I don't understand what's going on with that match. I didn't understand the Fiend thing. Obviously, I'm devastated at the Sami Zayn loss. Every match could have been perfect, and I would still be hurt by that loss. That tore my soul in pieces. Then the next match, right? Riddle loses. The original Bro, he's my guy. He had a great segment backstage with RVD. I was just dying at that part.
Hey, have you explained to your son yet what he handed him?
Yeah, he asked a few times. I was like, "Oh, those are rolling papers," and he's like, "What's that mean?" I was like, "Yeah, you just put some weed in there and smoke it." And he's like, "So it's a drug?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah, Riddle probably maybe Bro just like smokes it, you know."
So what you're saying is, in the south side of Milwaukee, you guys are more open about the drug conversation than up here in the Valley in Appleton. Got it. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean it's right. Now we live on the east side, and
Ooh.
so I'm sure it's around. I'm sure.
Okay. All right.
All
right.
So that match was painful to me. And then, right, so I've got Sami Zayn, he's my favorite, loses. Riddle, another favorite, loses. Big E, another favorite, loses. And then, with the interference and all that stuff. And then I was a fan of Rhea Ripley winning. I'm a huge Ripley fan.
Absolutely.
And
but
then,
let's close it out with this.
Of course, Roman Reigns.
Okay. So we're going to close with this, people. He's upset because the greatest wrestler in the industry today, who has been on a run since SummerSlam, retained his belt in an awesome finish to a match. In a really good wrestling match.
Yeah, now
if that match closes night one, no one's even debating the best match of the weekend. And it still was the best match of the weekend, bar none. Best match of the weekend. But because it was on a kind of a dumpster fire night, it kind of gets lost,
Yeah, I don't know. It was a hard, I don't like Roman Reigns.
Because he's good. He's amazing.
You're
not supposed to like him. He's a heel.
Yeah. So what is Sami Zayn?
A comedic act. That's how they're using him.
He is a heel, and I love him.
Because you're a heel. Naturally, you're a heel. But you're a Weasley heel. You're not like a mean bully.
I'm a technicality heel. Yeah.
You're Bobby Heenan. You know what I mean? You're not a bully. You're Bobby Heenan.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree.
So people, that you got it. An hour and 15 minutes. We're back. I promise you, we'll do another one this week. More draft talk. I'll have separate sections where we'll talk about some actual Packer stuff without Chad. Okay.
Yeah, I came in and I talked Packers today.
But here's what we're gonna do. Chad does it every year, so we're not gonna act like he's not gonna do it. Chad's gonna give us his Seahawks and Buffalo Bills mock draft because for whatever reason I get them sent to me like I care about the Seahawks draft picks. Now, luckily, the Seahawks don't have any picks, I don't think. So
yeah, 3 picks. That'll take me like 5 seconds.
Done. So you can spend more time on the Bills. So that's it, man. We're out for this week. If you have any thoughts, anything you want us to talk about, because God only knows what we'll talk about, shoot us some messages on Twitter.
If you're still listening and you don't tell us what you want us to talk about, we're just going to pick.
This is what you get. This is what you get.
We
had Chad's wife on. We had his daughter on. I think Chad's whole family podcast now. So
we've been listening to podcasts in the car now because the drive is farther. And so when we have the Highlander, right, like you can play it through so it goes on the sound.
Yeah.
It's really easy to listen to. We've been listening to the New Day podcast, and the New Day podcast is basically us, but they're popular.
Listen, people, you want to help us out here, okay? You want to help us out. Tell 5 people to listen. 5. All 4 of you, if you can get it to 20, then the next week we can get it to 100. This is entertaining. This is entertaining. We're funny. We're good. Okay. Get
And
more
if
people
you
to listen
add
to us.
5 people, then you'll get $5. And then if they add 5 people, they'll get $5.
Yeah, from someone. We'll find a sponsor eventually. Hey, if
Bernie
you want to
Madoff.
sponsor us,
Bernie Madoff.
listen.
Actually, he's died too.
Dinse J on Twitter, I Yell Yahtzee on Twitter. We'll see you next week.